great to be here. Yes, we really value our relationship with the WHO, and we're honoured to be part of this infodemic session on the CrowdTangle side and of course at Facebook. So my name's Asha. I'm based in Singapore, and my role is leading international news partnerships for CrowdTangle, which is a Facebook tool. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the tool itself, obviously, throughout this session. But just a quick background on myself, so you have some context. I'm a trained journalist and started my career in media in Australia, where I'm from. So you've got the pleasure of talking to two Australians this morning or this evening, depending on where you are in the world. So I started my career in media in Sydney at the ABC and a couple of the commercial networks there. And then I shifted and went into the new world at the time of social media and news, and that transition between understanding new sources of news from the likes of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And I helped, I launched Storyful in Asia Pacific. So I was the bureau chief there, really sort of helped launch the business across Asia Pacific. And some of you probably know Storyful. It was one of the first newswire media companies that focused on social media, looking at eyewitness media, verifying the eyewitness media, and then trying to disseminate that to news sources. So this was before we even talked about quote unquote fake news, misinformation, disinformation, etc. So that's my expertise. It is actually in the world of fact checking. And then I joined CrowdTangle 5 years ago, where I helped start the business in Asia Pacific, in Singapore, and then I started helping grow the business across other parts of the world outside of the US, where CrowdTangle was based. Fast forward to 3 years ago, and we were acquired by Facebook, which is where we now live. So we're still a team and almost like a little startup within Facebook. And since then, our team has grown pretty dramatically. So let me dive in to tell you a little bit more about what CrowdTangle does, and hopefully, it will help you in your work. Please feel free to ask any questions as we go, and we'll get to those at the end of the session as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, CrowdTangle is a public insights tool from Facebook. Makes it really easy to follow, analyze, and report what's happening with public content across social media. So I emphasize the public aspect of this, and you'll hear me repeating this a lot, because we don't deal with profiles except verified profiles on Facebook. So everything that we look at is publicly available data that has been curated, if you will, through our tool. So what do we actually track? So CrowdTangle database coverage. So every day our database grows, but it's really important to know that we do not track everything. So we're not tracking the entire universe of Facebook, for example. We track across multiple platforms. So we track Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and then we have some Twitter coverage, which I'll get to. So on Facebook, we track about 6 million public Facebook pages, and that's including public groups and verified profiles. So it does exclude, your average profile. So for example, I have a Facebook profile. I can't track my own content through the CrowdTangle tool. But if I had a verified profile as a journalist, for example, I could track my content that way. We also track 2 million public Instagram accounts. And that's important to note because obviously with Instagram, there are, you have two versions there of a closed account or a public account as well. Okay, so the database coverage as well is important to note. We track on Facebook pages that have 100,000 followers or more automatically. So they get brought into our system, as and when throughout days, weeks, months, as we're tracking them. So the minute a page starts to get that many followers or likes, it just automatically gets tracked in our system. And you can see the percentage of pages that we track within that range there, and it's very, very high coverage for those large, influential pages, if you will. We also track smaller pages, so that's not to say that we can't track a page, or even a group that has a smaller number of followers. And the way we track those is by, firstly, on our side, the CrowdTangle team will add those into the database. But on top of that, all of our users around the world, some of which are researchers, academics, journalists, and a host of other people, will add those pages into their own CrowdTangle account in order to track them. So our coverage is, constantly being updated day in, day out, as and when our users add more pages to track as well. So this data here was updated just a couple of days ago. We do update this every month, and it lives on our resources page on our website, which I'll share with everybody as well. So you can keep up to date with where we are in terms of coverage. So quick FYI on our metrics. So as I mentioned, you'll hear public a lot here. So firstly, what we do measure is public pages, public groups on Facebook or Instagram if it's a public account, interactions. So we look at reactions, likes, comments, and shares, both at the page and group level and the post level. We also look at page likes and video views, and that does break out by owned video views, cross-posted, and shares. So you'll notice that the shared video views is data that can't be found on Facebook natively, but everything else can. So you can go to a public Facebook group, for example, and you can manually crunch the numbers and find all of this data, but CrowdTangle kind of brings it together in a far more simplified way. What we don't track are page reach, click-throughs. We don't look at private posts. So for example, if a post in a public group or on a public page has a geo gate or is targeted to a certain group of people, we can't track that. And that's purely a privacy reason. We also can't differentiate paid or boosted posts. So CrowdTangle can't tell you if a page put money behind a post and boosted it, or if an individual inside of a group boosted a post that they shared there. So we can't differentiate between that organic or inorganic paid content. We can see both though, we just can't tell you which is which. And that again comes down to privacy. It's not public data. We can't look at demographic information. So for example, we can't tell you the makeup of page, where the fans or the page followers come from, whether they're based in Singapore or 50% are women or people under 30, for example. So that data, again, is not public and not data that we can track. And then finally, we can't track Facebook or Instagram stories, which we do hear requests, particularly from journalists, to track this data. But again, it's not public, and because of the ephemeral nature of it, it's quite difficult to track that data and understand how to present the data as well, because it doesn't live on forever. So today we're going to focus on CrowdTangle live displays. The CrowdTangle is quite a large tool. There are a lot of different functionalities and different products within CrowdTangle. But for the purpose of your fellowship, we're going to be looking at live displays, which you'll have access to and are public. So what is a live display? Live displays are really visually appealing, real-time views of select post streams or leaderboards. They can be viewed, loaded up on a personal computer or a shared screen, or they can also be used on mobile phone. So some of you may have used other tools that are similar to this or that look similar. Back in the old days when I was a journalist, I used to use TweetDeck. So for me, this is like a TweetDeck, but it is cross-platform. So I can use Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit in here and track everything in one place. So it makes it really, really easy to track content, whether it be content that's being posted by the WHO on Facebook, public groups on Facebook, or Twitter accounts, or public Instagram accounts. And we're going to jump into some examples in a moment so you can see them in real time. So the CrowdTangle COVID Hub is a public-facing hub that we built earlier this year at the beginning of the pandemic. And this is really a hub to help anyone, whether they're in the health sector, government, media, journalism, etc., to track what's being shared about COVID-19 across the world. And you can see this at a global level or a country level. And we're going to jump into this in real time, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. But firstly, just a quick high-level understanding of what it is. So there are more than 100 country-specific displays up on the hub, including a global display that you can actually edit yourself and filter to look at specific countries within that. There are also different live displays for all the states of the US as well. You can sort the different columns or the streams by relevant keywords and public accounts, and you can look at it by region as well. You can it includes content from local media organizations in the relevant country that you're looking at, the regional WHO pages, government agencies, local politicians, and more. These are public and can be viewed by anyone. So CrowdTangle generally, it's not a publicly available tool, but this COVID Hub we have built for the public, so anybody can look at this. As long as you have the link to it, you can go to it and you can look at any of these live displays. Important to note here, again, that it is all public data. So it's fine to share with people, that you're working with and other colleagues as well. So we're going to jump into the hub. I'm just going to reset my screen share here. Okay, so the public hub here, I'm going to share the link in the chat so everybody has it as well. And so firstly, there's a resource page here that I'm going to share the link to that will give you a quick video training on the live displays. So if you forget what I've gone through today, that's no problem. You can watch a 5-minute little video here. And it also explains how the live displays get set up, what are all the metrics behind it, etc. Okay, so as I mentioned here, we have over 100 different live displays. So I'm not going to go through all of them today in the interest of time, but they are broken down by regions. So it's very easy to understand, okay, if I'm working on countries or regions like Asia Pacific, I can very quickly click through and have a look at the different displays from those countries. And so these are, as I mentioned, they've been built by our team over the course of this year. We don't have plans to build out any more country level ones at this stage, but if there are any requests that you have, please do let us know, and I'll make sure you know how to get in touch with us as well. This global one here, I'm going to show you in detail, and then we're going to jump into a specific country display. Let me just expand this. So what we're looking at here are multiple different streams looking at COVID-19 keywords across the world. So we're not looking at a breakdown for a specific country here. We're just getting the trends globally. So if we scroll through here, you can have a look. This is the global media list on Facebook and Instagram. So what I'm looking at are different media outlets from across the world. They could be, for example, TV1 News in Indonesia. It could be a media site in Myanmar, an Australian news network, an Indian news network, etc. So we've compiled the list of all of their Facebook pages and Instagram accounts and put them in the one stream, searching for their posts related to COVID-19, and it's using a variety of keywords. You'll notice here there's a little gear, settings gear. If you click on that, you can actually sort of change or tweak the results that you get here. Now let me explain what they all mean. The first one here, it's preset to hot. Now what hot means essentially is it is the most recent post that is performing the highest or overperforming. It's a term that we use at CrowdTangle. What that means is the post is recent and it's getting a lot of engagement. We also have the ability to filter the post type here. So I could select only Facebook Lives as an example, and I can see the most recent high performing posts that are Facebook Lives. At the same time, I could change that to photos, and I'm going to get different results. Now these are real time, so they're updated as you log in. You don't need to refresh anything. They will just sort of self-update as you go. You can also filter by language. So we have no language filters here in the global display because we want to track everything. But if you wanted to select Arabic only, you could get results then for only the posts that are written in Arabic. And so that will help you narrow down some search results. If you want to go a step further or look at the filters in a different way, we can filter by country. So this will filter by the country of the page admins, which allows us to understand roughly where that page is focused on. And so for the most part, when we're looking at global media, for sure, it is going to be an accurate representation because the page admins are located in the market where the page is focused on. So these filters here, you can have a play around with. They don't change for other people. So if I'm logged in here looking at this global dashboard and someone else is at the same time, we can both be changing these, and it's not going to affect other people. So these settings are purely for yourself as you are looking at that display. So let me reset these back to what I had earlier, just to look at everything globally. So that's my global media. The breaking news stream here is looking at Facebook pages, media pages that are posting with the breaking news tag or the breaking news keyword included potentially in their comment here when they've posted or in the metadata of their story. Again, you've got the ability to filter that as well. We then have a stream just looking at Facebook Lives, so that will help you look at just purely live videos and as they're happening as well. You can also look at Facebook mentions here or Reddit mentions, so we're going to look at COVID keywords within Reddit. So that's a really great way, again, of looking at what's happening cross-platform. And then we've got here the World Health Organization's pages across the world, and we can just track what's being posted there. Let's say for this, I actually just want to see the most recent. So I can change that filter here to just look at the most recent posts by any of the WHO pages. And now I can see here, you know, in order what's been posted and the various timestamps as well. And then over here, we've got Instagram mentions. So again, these are the COVID keywords that we've put in across Instagram pages, including, this is our entire database that we're looking at. So it's getting a very, very broad look at mentions of these keywords in real time. And again, here you can change the filters. We've got it here as hot, which is most recent, overperforming, but you can change those as and when suits you. So that is the global live display. I'm going to just jump into one of the country ones just to give you a very quick example, and let's look at Japan here. So you'll see that all the keywords are in Japanese. The titles of each of the streams are also in Japanese. And obviously all of the content is filtered in Japanese as well. So for most of the, well, for all of the country live displays that we've built, we've made them in the local languages so that they're relevant to journalists and researchers and anyone who's looking at them. But again, you can filter things in different languages anyway. So even when I'm in the Japan live display, I can change my filter to various languages, and most likely it's going to give me no results. But you know, you might be able to actually find content here that's being shared in a different language from these various pages. So that is the live displays on our public hub. One thing I just want to show you as well is our email sign up for positive and heartwarming stories around this. So we've set up a morning digest here where you can get directly into your inbox some more positive and heartwarming stories around the COVID-19 crisis. And this is something that we've seen journalists using a lot as well, to look for different kinds of stories around COVID-19. So it could be something that is interesting for folks. We're also open to feedback and suggestions if there are other types of digests that would be interesting as well. Okay, finally, I'm just going to show you again our resources page. So I'll share the link with everybody here, but crowdtangle.com/resources is where all of our resources live. This is publicly available as well. So all you need to do is go to this site, and you can type in COVID keyword as well, and it will bring up our live display hub and a lot of training materials to help you refresh your memory on how these work as well. So I'll pause there and see if there are any questions on anything that I've gone through so far, or anything that I haven't shown you yet related to CrowdTangle, because as I mentioned, there's a lot to CrowdTangle, and we're only showing you a snippet of the tool here for the purpose of the infodemic training.
Thank you so much for that, Asha. We're going to take some questions now, I guess.
Hi, Liz. Ready for that, or shall I take that?
Go ahead, Tina, because so the questions have been coming in fast and furious. But go ahead, Tina, if you have it pulled up.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, and I'm actually struggling to be a bit systematic with this. So, Asha, maybe it's going to be more random than I would want.
No problem.
And I'm not sure if I should project because they're really a lot. I would suggest maybe we take 3 or 4, and then the rest we join together with the questions from the cohort B, and then maybe you record the response or something for people to view. Right, so there's a bunch of practical things that I guess, so for example, can you do hashtag analysis? Can you do subnational analysis and things like these? And I guess these are all related to data privacy and disaggregation. Maybe you could just make it like a general comment regarding, you know, disaggregation and where the limits are and maybe why specifically.
Sure. Yeah, we get a lot of questions about data and what you can and can't track. And so for quickly on the hashtags, so absolutely you can sort of do hashtag analysis or tracking, provided that the hashtags are being used publicly. So, you know, very simple example, if I post on Facebook using a hashtag like COVID-19, you can't track that because I have a Facebook profile that's private. I'm not a verified, I don't have a verified profile. So there will be limitations to that. So it will not allow you to look at a hashtag across Facebook, for example, globally, how many times it's been mentioned, for example, but it will allow you to hone in on public pages and groups that are using that hashtag. And you can hone in on a specific group. So example, if you have a pro-vaccination group or an anti-vaxxer group that you're tracking, you can look within that group and see when they've mentioned a certain hashtag. And CrowdTangle can help you do that. Although there are limitations to it, unfortunately, for the purpose of this, because you don't have access to all of CrowdTangle at this point. So really it's just within those live displays, you can do those filtering and sort of search through in that way. So we do have hashtags in our search filters already. So that's sort of already been built into those live displays for you. And I think just generally, you know, a note about data that we can and can't track, and it really, it does come down to privacy and the availability of data. So even though CrowdTangle, you know, is a Facebook tool, we can't track all Facebook. We don't have that access to data. We're actually looking at public data through public APIs. So for the most part, all of our data comes from public sources. So I hope that answers it, but I'm happy to sort of follow up separately later if there are more specific questions.
Yeah, there will be details, but I would suggest that we send you all of the list and then you sort of group. There's another class of comments, actually very positive feedback on the session. That it's very informative. But of course, there is a question about how does one get access to it. So you mentioned that this is a research tool. Could you explain, you know, first of all, who perhaps they can contact for regarding the public tools, and who and what maybe like 30-second process description of who can request access or would get access to CrowdTangle for research purposes?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'll share in the chat our support email that everyone can reach out to request access. So it's as simple as emailing us really to start the process. But very high level at the moment, CrowdTangle access, full access is only available to journalists and media organizations. There are some researchers and academics. I don't personally work with those, that cohort of people, but my colleague in the US leads that globally. But there is a process for application for researchers and academics. So the best way is just to email us, and then we can follow up individually around that.
Yeah. And then maybe just to add, for all of you, practically speaking, we've been, talking about, you'll be working for WHO or UN agency, when you get deployed to a country for search support. So UN agencies do have access to CrowdTangle, and what you need to do is, when we've been speaking about networking, when you find out who's working on what in the country, this is what you need to also be paying attention to, because very likely there is someone in the UN family or in the research community, or fact checkers perhaps, that may have access, and they can collaborate with you specifically on what you need. And of course, they're bound to the terms of use of CrowdTangle for research as well. So keep that in mind as well. There were several questions, and perhaps you could, Asha, explain a little bit more what's the difference between private and verified accounts. And also, there was a question, what if someone whose settings are set to private posts on a public page, does that data, their comments, get included? It's a bit more detailed, but if you could explain a little bit more on that.
Sure. So, okay, let me tackle that last one first. So if you have a Facebook profile, but it's not verified, meaning it's not a public profile, but you are in a public group and you make a comment or a post even within that group, that content is technically considered public. However, in CrowdTangle, we can't see your comment on a post, for example. We will be able to see the post itself. So if you do post a link to a WHO article, for example, we'll be able to see that. But we can't see the actual content of the comments on it. We can see how many people like it, comment, or reshare as a pure number, but we can't see the details of the comments. So if you're the commenter, not the poster, we won't see what you comment. So that data is actually considered private. So that's just something to consider as well.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of the related to analysis that has to do with the metadata versus the actual content of the posts, and it's a bit terminology related, but you will see this a lot when you're doing the online analysis of content online. Maybe two very hopefully short questions. So there's a couple of comments related to what would be your advice, for example, if you're using even the public part, the public tools, if you're trying to analyze any disinformation, and for example, that particular piece of disinformation is circulating in your country, what would be like the first steps you would need to do to try and sort of understand its context using CrowdTangle?
Wow, great question. We could talk about this for a long time. So I'll keep it short for now. Maybe we could have a follow-up on this.
We can make it the last question and it gives you more time. Let's do that.
Okay, that sounds good. There are a lot of different things you could do, but within the public live displays that you've got access to at this stage, really the best thing you could do is take action on it and report it if you feel like it is, or you're unsure potentially that it is misinformation or disinformation. And that's really just taking action as a citizen of the world, or potentially a fact-checking organization if that's where you are. It's not really possible through the public live displays that we have to then kind of go down a sort of research or analysis piece to find more context on that particular post. because you don't have full access to CrowdTangle. But if you were inside the CrowdTangle tool, you could do advanced searches, much like a Google advanced search, where you could have multiple keywords. You could even input the post itself and try and find, original shares of it. We also have an aspect within our search tool that is new and is allowing you to kind of find original posts, whether it be an original photo or video. So that's something that we're building for fact checkers specifically, and journalists who do that kind of investigations work. So that, yeah, you would really need further access to CrowdTangle to be able to do that.
But at least you've outlined the what to ask from colleagues that could help analyze this. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we need to stop here. Lots of questions. We will combine all of that and send it to you also after the second cohort, and many statements of appreciation. So Asha, thank you very much, and we'll see you also in cohort B today.
Thank you. Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Laura, can you please remind me, do we have a break? I think we have one song break.
We have a very quick 1 song break so that everyone can go get an extra cup of coffee, run to the toilet really quickly while Alex gets set up to speak next. Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. DJ.
Alas, there's no music. Not yet, anyway.
Well,
I'm sorry. Can you guys not hear that? I can totally
now
hear
we do.
it.
Now we can.
We do.
All right.
Now we don't.
Can you hear it there?
Perfect.
Yes.
Blackouts every other night.
Okay, one song break is over. And I see that Alex is already here with us as well. So to continue discussing and learning from